Hello and welcome to CultureCast. My name is Victoria.
And my name is Christina.
And today we're going to discuss the 2003 drama historical film Imagining Argentina, written by and directed by Christopher Hampton. Christopher Hampton is a British screenwriter, playwright, and director, and the film is based off of Lawrence Thornton's novel Imagining Argentina.
So the film is basically about the situation in Argentina during the 1970s, where there was a dictatorship in power, and there were, just numerous and thousands of people missing who who get taken and are disappeared by the military government. It's basically about a man who's played by Antonio Banderas in search for his wife who gets taken away, who's played by Emma Thompson, and it's basically his search for his family and all the other loved ones who are also in search of their family during that time.
Antonio Banderas, he plays a guy named Carlos, who can kind of like touch people and then like see where their loved ones are. But throughout the movie, he kind of struggles with doing that with his own wife, even though he kind of gets flashes. So he kind of like has his own garden where like people come and he like tells them about their loved ones who have like disappeared.
Cecilia is Carlos's wife, and Emma Thompson plays her. In the beginning of the film, she's taken by the military after she writes an article, because she's a journalist. She writes an article about teenagers the same age as her daughter Teresa's, who protested against bus fares, and since these teenagers protested against the bus fares, the military took them because the people in Argentina are not allowed to express their opinions because it's a dictatorship. So the film starts with an actual newsreel from when this was happening in Argentina, and in this newsreel there's a woman with I guess it's a news reporter or someone. She's obviously being interviewed. She's speaking into a microphone, and her voice at this moment is extremely compelling and desperate, and you could just feel how she really wanted help from anyone who was willing to help her find her loved one. And the newsreel makes a nice transition into the actual film with the actors, and the actors then start to portray this same like desperation and wanting to help later on in the film.
Okay, and just going back to that particular newsreel, so it transitioned from the newsreel to actual footage of people who were rallying and protesting against the dictatorship and for their loved ones, and that directly transitions to the movie itself, where you see a load of women just circling around a government building. And I thought that was, well done and well executed, because it just felt very organic and we knew exactly what we were, diving into with the movie.
And going back to, you mentioned something how they're bystanders. I guess Cecilia and Esme and Carlos, they're all looking in, and eventually this does happen to them. Cecilia is taken away because she's trying to stand up for what she believes in. She's a journalist, and she writes an article about children who protested against bus fares, and those children were taken by the military. And as a mother, Cecilia wants to write an article about it, and she wants to express her opinion, but the people in Argentina really aren't allowed to do that because they're totally controlled by the military and the government.
So it's like another thing like people would do when like people would they want their loved ones to come home, but a lot of people like in the movie, like Carlos, kind of like blame themselves for like their loved ones being gone, which is kind of like a thing called like victim blaming, which is a pretty like common thing that happens when something bad happens to like their loved ones.
There's a particular scene where Carlos goes to a farm where a couple are living, and the couple are actually survivors of the Holocaust. So I thought that was another profound way for the director to kind of show us, like, you know, this happened before, but clearly we didn't, you know, learn from it. So what's our moral responsibility? And I'm not saying that the Holocaust survivors or what happened during the Holocaust is, you know, the same as what happened in Argentina in the 70s. But I think that it was kind of a comparison of some sorts by the director. Just, you know, history was semi sort of repeating itself, and nobody did anything to stop it. So are we to really think like, oh, should we blame the people who didn't do anything to stop it? Or should we, you know, just be complicit in it?
And going back to the Nazi thing, and their like costumes, the minister's get up, his whole thing looked a lot like a Nazi uniform, which I think that was on purpose, definitely.
And in this scene when Carlos stays at the house of people who survived the Holocaust, the couple, they have a lot of birds. There's a lot of birds, and they explain to him, you know, they have all these birds because they believe they carry the souls of the people who didn't make it out of the Holocaust. So birds are seen all throughout the movie, and they become a symbol of freedom and strength in a way. And Carlos can see what's happening to the people who have disappeared, but he has trouble seeing what has happened to his wife Cecilia. However, he sees an owl near, we don't really know what it is, but there's this big, it kind of looks like a factory with the emblem of an owl on it. So we make this connection, and we realize that like birds and owls specifically are a major symbol in the movie. And skipping all the way to the end of the movie, Carlos is at some sort of festival, and he sees an owl on a truck, the same exact emblem, an owl that he saw in his vision of when he was trying to find Cecilia. And then he realizes, oh my gosh, she's free, she's somewhere around here. And then they do find each other, and they're together again. It's a happy ending.
Thankfully. Just talking about Cecilia, there are a couple of scenes that I really want to talk about in regards to her, because I feel like she's a very empowered character. I mean, she always tried to do the right thing. One particular scene that stood out to me, which basically showed her resilience, which is a major theme throughout the movie, was when her daughter gets abducted as well, and she shares the same jail cell. The daughter is actually taken away because the military, they want to kind of, I guess, torture her, because in the next scene you see exactly what happens to her. But in that scene where she's taken away, the camera doesn't go directly to her face. After she gets taken away, the jail door gets shut, and all you see is Cecilia's hands grappling onto the bars. And I thought that was just, you know, artfully done, just because it would have been too obvious to show Cecilia's face and basically everything that she's going through, all the emotions running through her. I thought it was much more painful, and it resonated with me more when all you see are her hands just like, you know, with her white knuckles, because she's grappling it so hard. I thought that was really, really well done.
And I would say that there is a bit of feminism in the film, because Cecilia is a very strong woman, and we're not sure of the exact timeline or time span of how long Cecilia is in captivity. I'd say it's at least a year, and over that course of a year of seeing her being tortured emotionally and physically, she never breaks down and cries until her daughter is taken away and tortured. But in that moment, she's also she's not giving up what she believes in. So for the entire film, she's standing up for what she believes in. She doesn't give any information to the military. And I'd say this has to do with feminism because she doesn't give in and she stays strong and powerful throughout the entire film.
So, another scene that really, I think, resonated with both of us is when Carlos goes to the military official. I think his name is Guzman, and he basically is going because the previous day before he was at a church service where the military came in and abducted all these people. So he was going on behalf of himself and for the people that were in the church. And he goes and pleads with him saying like, oh, these are the names, these are their date of births, this is what they look like, there are nuns involved as well, and they were still taken and we would like some answers, please, just try to get to the bottom of it. And there was also some foreshadowing because when Guzman says like, I know about these meetings, in the next scene or in the few scenes after that, you see that there was a spy amongst them sent by Guzman who worked as part of one of the military people who actually abducted and tortured people. And you see that, Carlos, obviously with his gift, sees right through that.
One common argument against this film is that it juxtaposes images of torture with optimism and even a sense of comedy. One main theme throughout the novel is the theme of reality versus imagination, which is shown throughout the main character being able to see events in his head that were occurring around the world. Due to the fact that this is extremely unrealistic, as he had a magic ability, it turns the drama of the novel and of the events that occurred into something less serious and more silly. The juxtaposition, or two things being seen or placed closely together with contrasting effect, of torture and hope or optimism, left many people angry at the film. This is seen throughout the ways the director shows the main character's thoughts. The audience learns that the character can see into the future, or see people that have been captured and are being tortured. Most times in film, when there is torture or death involved, the scene is very dark and sad with not much light and deeper tones of colors. However, throughout Carlos's visions, the director included a lot of light in the scenes. This is shown throughout the one vision of Carlos's wife being pushed off the building, which, though ended up being just a dream, was in broad daylight. The most horrific part of these events that occurred in Argentina in the late 1900s were the fact that no one knew where their loved ones were when they were taken and tortured. No one knew if they were dead or alive, and this is what made it so traumatic, but also took away the citizens' ability to mourn, since they were unsure of what happened to their family members. Throughout the film Imagining Argentina, it almost makes a mockery of the trauma that they endured from this unknowingness, since people would go to Carlos to find out what happened to their family members. This is why critics often say that it only succeeds in trivializing the shameful era. The multiple symbols used in the film, for example birds and owls, were used in scenes to portray a sense of hope and optimism. For example, Carlos sees an owl in a vision that leads to where Cecilia has been taken to. There is a barn-type building with an emblem of an owl near the place where she is being hidden. At the end of the movie, the people in that building save Cecilia, and Carlos sees a truck with the same emblem on it. This is how he knew Cecilia was close to him and they reunited. However, many critics say that this time period was one of which that was full of traumatic events and there was no place or time for optimism or hope. This is why many people believe that Imagining Argentina had a terrible lack of respect for those who lived in the time.
Alright, so hello, my name is Ryan.
And I'm Brianna.
And we're going to continue our team's critique of the movie Imagining Argentina. As Haley introduced for us, there's several topics from the film we're going to discuss. But the main argument we have against the film is the lighthearted portrayal of the tragic disappearances that occurred in Argentina.
Yeah, so to start off, a lot of people took offense to the depiction of the events in the movie because they were fused with very lightheartedness and there's some use of comedy, and it kind of took away from the actual tragedies that had occurred, and it was kind of insensitive to the people who have struggled throughout history in Argentina in this very dark time. And
right. So the unconvincing plot line, essentially, that some guy can see into the future or see into the past and understand where people went is just so unbelievable. And then paired with poor acting.
It was terrible acting.
Yeah, really bad. It takes away from any appeal to pathos or ethos or logos in the film.
Yeah. And there were, like, his unconvincing nature of his visions. It was some sort of magical realism they try to play into, and it doesn't really make sense to kind of document, like, real, like, history with fantasy, because it kind of leaves the audience kind of confused, because are they supposed to feel bad, or are they supposed to be hopeful? But if you're hopeful, it doesn't really, like, work, because no one can actually see into the future. So it's kind of, like, fake, really, really fake, and it just takes away from the whole message of the movie, and there's actually really no message, really. Like, the message is lost, I think, because of the magical realism. Yeah.
Right. And then there were a couple of parallelisms that really didn't make sense. There was depictions of Nazis in Argentina at the time, and obviously they were trying to draw a parallelism between the concentration camps during World War II and these camps that the people that were disappeared went to. But it really didn't connect with us, at least. I think the only real attempt to connect with anything was the tickers at the beginning and the end that showed the numbers of people that were disappeared. But other than that, we had trouble connecting with any of the appeals.
Yeah, it kind of got lost. It was really far-fetched, and because there was no mention prior to that specific moment in that, like, family, it's kind of like, where did that come from? Like out of left field, and just did not connect with anyone that we knew of. Like, our group did not get it. It was kind of random and confusing, and took away from the actual message again, because it was not related to anything, and no one really, like, got it.
So overall, we really did not like this movie. We didn't think that it made any connections to the audience, and that's pretty much our side. I don't know what else to say.
The moral was lost, and the characters were not exciting, and Antonio Banderas' character, not to mention, dodged so many bullets, not literal bullets, but he was just like a superhero, and it just didn't really make sense, because he should have died early on. His daughter was irrelevant. She was just there to kind of be like participate. I mean, like, what was she there for?
It's hard to say, honestly, because the daughter was the only connection he had to his wife when she was gone. But then, other than that, she doesn't serve a purpose. She kind of suffers in the camp, and then she is killed horribly. So there wasn't really a plausible usage for her in this movie.
Yeah, she was just there kind of for the shock effect, like, jump effect, like, oh my gosh, she got tragically killed. Like, we're excited now to watch the movie, but that was, like, the only exciting thing in the whole movie. And because also the symbolism of owls, every time he saw an owl, we knew the wife was going to pop up.
Right.
So it didn't leave any space for us to kind of be like, oh, where's the wife? Is there going to be a plot twist? Because there'd be an owl, we're like, oh, the wife's coming. So we didn't even there wasn't room for us to guess or kind of, like, assume things. There was no mystery aspect. So that's why it was kind of unenjoyable also.